Hey guys, it's Mike from Cafe, and in this video, we're going to, first of all, happy 2023. Thank you for joining us on Cafe YouTube, and let's talk about the current crisis in crypto, which is the whole DCG, Genesis, Gemini situation, which is not rectified, will have major consequences. Um, but because people don't look at the big picture, they only look at micro events in crypto. This is not being highlighted or emphasized enough. So, we're really just gonna get into it. So Caramel Winklevoss is over the founder of it's DCG and then it's Genesis. And they have a lot of other subsidiaries, but essentially DCG and Genesis have been, they dealt with the 3AC thing, they dealt with the Luna UST thing, and they dealt with the FTX thing. So instead of saying, hey, like it's getting a little rough, we can't handle it, they, I guess, have been hiding it this whole time. And I guess when the FTX situation happened, and then other metrics made it so that Genesis was unoperable, and then DCG they're questionable in terms of operation. But Genesis has not filed for bankruptcy so far. We don't know if they should because that's the issue. It like hasn't really been clarified as to how bad it is, but we can assume it's bad just because of all the losses incurred between like last year and then apparently DCG borrowed from Gemini Genesis or something of that nature, and they gave someone a permissionary note of $1 billion. So there's a lot of debt being called, um, but they're holding the Gemini users. They're holding their earn accounts as leverage and saying that they can't pay it out. But it's like, okay, if you can't pay out, just release the earned funds for Gemini holders and let everyone move forward. But that's where things get tricky because if you start to notice these companies like they're limiting withdrawals so they can be like, oh, well, if I'm bankrupt, at least I have this crypto to utilize at my leisure, which isn't right. And I hope there's some law with that stops this from happening. Like you can't withhold user funds if you're bankrupting. You actually should be forced to immediately refund people because you have a lot going on. So we're gonna read Cameron Winklevoss's letter right quick. Yeah, so Cameron has been talking his stuff and saying he hasn't been happy the way Barry has been like dealing with meetings or something of that nature. Like Barry isn't like communicating accurately or he's like not being transparent as to how to navigate this and he has to come up with his own solution. That's another interesting thing. When these crypto founders have their net worth tied to the platforms, how much of that money is theirs? How much is the platform? So I think that's something I really want to see moving forward. Like all these crypto founders and VCs, how much of your net worth is the project? Are you the project? Because it's like with SBF's net worth, it was like something billion, but now it's zero. So it's like, wait, did you just create something and then just say everything on the platform is yours by default so you can claim it into your network? Like, it's very confusing. I would love if someone in the comments can even define that for me, but I think it's wrong. And moving forward, if you want to walk around saying that you're worth that much money, when something hits the fan, you should be able to cash out and save your projects or your community that you have actively participated in causing this type of financial chaos. Okay, so an open letter to the board of GCG, which is Barry Silver's group. I'm writing you to know that Gemini and more than 300,040 earned users have been defrauded by the Genesis Capital LLC, together with its parent company, Digital Currency Group, its founder and CEO, Barry Silbert, and other key personnel. These parties conspired to make false statements and misrepresentation to Gemini earned users, other lenders, and the public at large about solvency and the financial health of Genesis. Ooh, those are fighting words. They did so in an effort to mislead lenders into believing that DCG has absorbed massive losses that Genesis occurred from 3AC, Three Arrows Capital, collapse and induce lenders to continue making loans to Genesis. Oh, so when that happened, they basically asked everyone for more money to cover it. Oh, that's bad. Yeah. By lying, they hope to buy time to dig themselves out of the hole they created. Here's what happened. By lying, they hope to buy time to dig themselves out of the hole they created. Oh, here's what happened. We're learning more by the day, but at the present, the basic events that we are understanding follows. Genesis lent 2.36 billion of assets to 3AC, a Singapore-based hedge fund that also went belly up in June 2022. After collateral was liquidated, Genesis indicated that it was left with a loss of at least 1.2 billion. At this point, Barry Silver had two legitimate options: restructure the Genesis loan book inside or outside of bankruptcy, or fill the $2 billion hole. Okay, that's what we're saying. So everyone rushes to bankruptcy court, but the issue is they can restructure debt before it hits that level. So that's lazy. And also, if you have a net worth over a certain amount, cover it yourself. Open your purse. The same way I feel about people with PPE loans whose businesses weren't really bad. Open your purse. Fund your own company. When you make a lot of money, you're supposed to put into your business at hard times. Like, open your purse. Stop asking people for money when it's your fault for bad lending, for like lending out to people with very little collateral. And then don't cry after all these things that you were aware of could have gone wrong at the same time. You're just being indigent with, billions of dollars. It's crazy. So at this point in time, the Genesis loan book was approximately 8 billion, which means that 1.2 billion from loss from 3AC would account for roughly 15% of the loan book's assets. A restructuring then could have addressed the shortfall to achieve a full recovery of assets for the lenders, including ARN users. Okay, it's clicking. In a short amount of time, giving them direct access to liquidity, but Barry chose not to do this. He also chose not to fill the 1.2 billion hole. Instead, he pretended to. Oh. Beginning in early July 2022, Barry, DCG, and Genesis embarked on a carefully crafted campaign of lies to make Gemini ARN users and other lenders believe that DCG had injected 1.2 billion of actual support into Genesis. Public lies. On July the 6th, Michael Morrow, the CEO of Genesis, then tweeted, DCG has assumed certain liabilities of Genesis related to 3AC to ensure that we have the capital to operate and scale our business for long term. The statement was false and misleading. In reality, DCG had not ensured that Genesis had the capital to operate. And in fact, DCG hadn't given Genesis so much of a penny of actual funding to make up for the 3AC loss. Instead, DCG entered a 10-year promissory note with Genesis at the rate of 1% due in 2032. What? That's like me borrowing from somebody and then being like, hey, I got you, bro, and I'm going to give you a 10-year promissory note instead of paying you back. But then you don't know what's going to happen between 1 and 10 years. So it's like, but to make matters even worse, Genesis is a subsidiary of DCG. So it's kind of like, again, it's like you're loaning to yourself. Wow. Okay. The note was a complete gimmick that did nothing to improve Genesis' immediate liquidity position or make its balance sheet solvent. And even though DCG was tagged in Morrow's tweets, no one from DCG, including Barry, bothered to correct the statement. I feel like founders be acting really ghetto. Private lies. Behind the scenes, multiple Genesis and DGG, I'm sorry, I kept saying DCG. DGG personnel began to double down with more lies. For example, on the same day as Morrow's tweet, July 6th, Mathen Balswag, Genesis' then head of training and lending, emailed a document titled Three Arrows Post-Mortem to multiple Gemini employees who were responsible for managing aspects of the ARN program. In the section that's documented, key facts stated, losses predominantly absorbed by and netted against DCG balance sheet. Oh, maybe they just spelled it wrong. Leaving Genesis with adequate capitalization to continue business as usual. Okay. The statement was false and misleading. The fact that DCG had not absorbed 3AC losses on its balance sheet, doing so required DCG to invest real-time support into Genesis. So they said they fixed the hole. They did not fix the hole, because to fix the hole, it would require putting money into Genesis. The DCG promissory note did not, as I explained below, leave Genesis with adequate capitalization on its balance sheet to continue business as usual. This slide was perpetuated by a document titled Gemini Risk Metric Request from Balanceweg attached to the same email correspondence with the Gemini employee. The financial position per asset section of the document contained what we have since discovered to be at least two critical misrepresentations. It characterized the DCG promissory note as a current asset with a subcategory label other assets and its value at 1.1 billion. First, as the matter of generally accepted accounting principles and common understandings, a current asset refers to cash, cash equivalents, and other assets to be exchanged. I'm sorry, Cameron is dragging him, and I kind of like the Winklevoss twins. I mean, I after the finessery of Facebook, I don't mind them. I think they're actually cool ones. No, does anyone else have that thought process? It's not important. Um, yeah. Anyway, so sorry. First, as a matter of generally accepted accounting principles and the common understanding, as current asset refers to cash, cash equivalents, and other assets that can be exchanged into cash within 1 year. Makes sense. A promissory note with the principal repayment due in 10 years falls outside of the definition of current assets by a country mile, which means it's not real. It's a note with a promise to repay in 10 years. Essentially, so I understand what they're saying, and to include it on the balance sheet as if they fix the hole is misleading and misrepresentation. Second, there is no market on the earth that would value an unsecured long date promissory note at face value. The net present value of this note would be heavily discounted, approximately 70%, to reflect its value of today, perhaps 300 million. Oh, honey. The improper accounting of Gemini risk metric requests document also exists in the Genesis balance sheet as of June 30th, 2022. That balance was included in the same July 6th email. This misrepresentation repeated in many documents sent to Gemini and other lenders over the past following months were a sleight of hand designed to make it appear as if Genesis was solvent and able to make its obligation to lenders, without DCG actually committing to the financial support necessary to make this true. DCG wanted to have its own cake and eat it too, and Barry and DCG may have gotten away with it if it wasn't for the FTX collapse. How do we get here? Greed. As a standalone business, it's inconceivable that Genesis would have lent so much money to 3AC given the low quality of collateral that 3AC posted. Yes, this is what I kept saying to everyone. Why would you have given 3AC this much money when they didn't let you hold anything? Like, you gotta think with the brain. We have to think. We have to think with it. Genesis made these loans because they thought it was one piece of a much larger scheme designed to enrich the DCG enterprise. Okay. More specifically, Genesis was willing to recklessly lend to 3AC because 3AC was using money for kamikaze grayscale net value assets. Oh yeah, because they were buying a lot of grayscale Bitcoin, and that's another thing that will probably be problematic in the next few weeks. I can only address one crisis at a time. Trade. Oh yeah, sorry. So using money for the kamikaze grayscale net asset value trade, a recursive trade that ballooned the AUM of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, ticker GBTC, and consequently the fees earned by its sponsors. Oh, let's get it. So essentially, they were giving money to 3AC because 3AC was buying GBTC, and DCG owns Grayscale Investment, which receives the fees from from Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. Wow. That's so they're being greedy. Look at where we are. Genesis booked these interactions with 3AC as bona fide collateralized loans. It was becoming clear, however, this is not the case at all. And then they lied on their balance sheet and said they had more collateral from 3AC than they actually had. That's really bad. In reality, 3AC was acting more of a conduit for Genesis, allowing you to enter into what was effectively swap transaction of Bitcoin for GBT shares with the Grayscale Trust. Oh my God. In this transaction, Genesis was betting that the shares would be worth more than the Bitcoin in the future. Why? The 3AC loan was the Bitcoin leg of the swap, and the 3AC collateral was the GBTC leg of the swap. 3AC was a mule shuttling the assets between both parties, a result of Genesis owning a massive risk. Up until 2021, Genesis ran the zero-sum trade because GBT shares were worth more than Bitcoin previously. Starting in 2021, however, when Genesis lost this trade because their shares were worth less than Bitcoin. Normally, these things are being equal. The gains and losses would have canceled each other out. There is no free lunch. In other words, Genesis would participate in both the wins and the losses. Astonishing, however, it appears that Genesis never participated in the wins because it apparently always ceded them. The GBTC share premium to 3AC. It meant that Genesis only participated in the losses and turning what would otherwise have been a zero-sum trade to a negative-sum trade. Crazy town. You can't be greedy and stupid. You got to pick one struggle. Dear Lord. Okay, disturbingly, not only did Genesis not close out 3A's positions with the NAV trade invertedly, something only a rationally independently operated business would have done, it continued to lend to 3AC on attractive terms and accept GBTC as collateral. For Grayscale, this has been a desired effect of keeping GBTC shares from being sold into the market, which would have depressed the share price, further widening the discount for NAV. But for Genesis, this had the undesired effect of keeping the risk position open and allow it to grow. Why would Genesis enter a toxic risk position where it would be best it could do was not lose money? Things only begin to make sense when you realize that the Bitcoin that the swap was stuffing into the Grayscoin trust, like Thanksgiving turkey, is stuck there forever. What? It can never be redeemed, or at least until Grayscale, its sole discretion, decides to implement a redemption program, allowing GBTC to be converted back to Bitcoin. Oh my God, I never realized that. They don't even have a redemption program. See, this is why I say, you guys, these products sound nice, they sound safe, but look at this. You can't even redeem GBTC for Bitcoin, and that's crazy. Oh my God. This is why you shouldn't just buy the crypto. Don't do all of this. This is like crazy. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people have like GBTC and like spent so much money on it. And if BCG goes down, Genesis goes down, this one right here, you might have some problems with redemption if they ever create one. Wow. As a result, Barry is comfortable with Genesis loading up more and more toxic trade because it was a gambit to feed the Grayscale trust. Because he ends up, yeah, I see what you're saying. There ends up being more GBTC. Oh, he ends up keeping all the Bitcoin. Yep, that's what it is. Barry's Financial Hotel California that would print money for the DCG universe perpetuality. The end would justify its means. Original accounting fraud. Ooh. Instead of booking these swaps as the risk derivatives that they were, Genesis hid them by mischaracterizing the first and last legs of these swaps transactions as collateralized loans on the balance sheet. This made Genesis' balance sheet appear healthier than what it was and fraudulently inducing lenders to continue making loans. In June 2022, the music stopped. 3AC collapsed, laying bare all the poisonous fruits of this radioactive trade instead of stepping up to solve this self-created problem, and despite having earned more than $1 billion in fees. At the expense of Genesis lenders, Barry refused to take responsibility. Instead, he resorted to committing fraud by protecting his ill-gotten gains. The path forward. For many reasons mentioned above, there is no path forward as long as Barry Silbert remains CEO of DCG. He has proven himself to be unfit to run DCG and is unwillingly able to find a resolution with creditors that is both fair and reasonable. As a result, Gemini, acting on behalf of 340,000 earned units, request that the board removes Barry Silbert, as CE effective immediately and install a new CEO who will right the wrongs occurred under Barry's watch. Genesis lenders, including earned users, have been seriously harmed and deserves a resolution for the recovery of their assets. I'm confident with the new management of DCG, we can all work together to achieve this position, an out-of-court solution that'd be a win-win outcome for all DCG shareholders. Okay, so what they're saying is, look, we don't got to go to the court, but y'all need to move bro out the way. Like, Barry Silver has to go, and you have to restructure it yourself. Because honestly, like, American U.S. cart, when it comes to like financial institutions, it's not this. They don't know what to do with crypto. Like, they don't understand like the legal process, and it would take a regulatory clarity from the SEC or some type of law for them to be able to have like a process. So they're basing all of these things off of like old bankruptcy rules for like corporations, but you have to remember is not the same. It's a little bit more technical, and wrong is wrong. So it's like they can say whatever they want, but they literally are doing illegal stuff without the consent of the users, without the consent of various things. They're not doing these things with consent, but they'll run to the courts and be like, well, since it's on our platform, they consented to placing the alpha player. And that's the problem, is because when they go to court, they switch it up real quick, and then suddenly like, you shouldn't have put it on there. You should have been more wiser. You shouldn't have given us all this control. And it's like, yo, that's not the term of your agreement or your advertising. And again, had people known what was happening with these platforms, they would have never used them. So you can't suddenly switch up like, oh, we're not doing anything wrong, but you made a mistake allowing us to custody your assets. Okay, well, this is fascinating, and this story is still developing because Barry Silver has not resigned and Genesis has currently not went into bankruptcy, even though it sounds like they should at this point. Okay, thank you guys. Let me know what you think about this and what do you think is going to happen next. Leave something about that in the comments. Okay, bye guys. Have a good day or night, evening, life, both, all of it. Bye.